Good evening, everybody. My name's Kyle Judah. I'm the Executive Director of the Lou Idea Lab for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. Welcome to our Lou Distinguished Visitor Series this evening. We're incredibly lucky to have Davy Wang from Tencent Cloud joining us this evening to share more about his life, his journey of entrepreneurship and innovation in the big wide world of living in the cloud. Before we get into having our guests join us and asking some questions that we've been able to receive from many of you in the run-up to this evening's discussion, wanted to share a little bit more about what we're all about at Lilly and then introduce our incredible partner for this evening's series, the Chao Center for Asian Studies at Rice University. So Lilly is the home of entrepreneurship and innovation at Rice. Whether you're a student, faculty, staff, or alumni from any major, from any degree program, Lilly exists to serve you and to support you on your entrepreneurial journey. We run everything from courses at the #1 ranked entrepreneurship program in the world, workshops and speaker series, much like tonight, to inspire you and help you level up your startup skill set, as well as provide equity-free funding and personalized mentorship to help you at every stage of your journey. Finally, we also run the flagship competition for the Rice campus and Rice Ventures, the Napier Rice Launch Challenge in the spring, which is your chance to win over $60,000 in equity-free funding for your venture. So make sure that you stay on top of that late-breaking news and everything else that's here to come for the tail end of our fall semester over the winter and into the spring by signing up for our newsletter, which you can find at entrepreneurship.rice.edu. One last big thank you to our benefactor, the patron saint of entrepreneurship and innovation at Rice, Frank Liu, for helping to make our center possible, this evening possible. We love you. We appreciate you, Frank. With that, I'm thrilled to introduce our incredible co-sponsor for this evening's talk, Lisa Balabanlilar from the Chao Center for Asian Studies at Rice University.
Thank you so much, Kyle. You said it properly too. Yes, I'm Lisa Balabanlilar. I'm the director of the Chao Center for Asian Studies at Rice University in Houston, Texas. I just want to give you a few brief comments about the Chao Center. We are housed in the School of the Humanities at Rice, and the Chao Center there is the premier research hub for faculty and students working across many disciplines in the study of a transnational, transcultural Asia. The Chao Center supports innovation and excellence in faculty research and draws postdoctoral fellows from around the world. We arrange major international conferences, we host a distinguished speaker series, and we offer a variety of interdisciplinary workshops. But most relevant tonight, the Chao Center is home to the Lou Distinguished Speaker Series, the Distinguished Visitor Series, which honors creativity and innovation in business, technology, and the arts. So I invite you to explore our website. The address is on your screen to see our calendar of events, including upcoming visitors in a variety of our speaker series, but in particular, the Lou Distinguished Visitor Series. So at that, in the name of the Chao Center and the Lou Distinguished Visitor Series, it's my great pleasure to welcome you this evening. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Lisa. We're incredibly lucky and proud to have you all as partners for this evening session and many more moving forward, hopefully. I want to take 1 minute, literally 1 minute, just to introduce our guest this evening, because he has such an incredible story and has really been at the forefront of this massive technological shift over the last, call it 12, 13 years or so. Davey Wong is joining us after literally being at the bleeding edge of the cloud since the mid-2000s. He started out of university as a consultant at Wipro Technologies, but very soon thereafter joined IBM's cloud computing practice as one of the early evangelists on the team there and helped lead a lot of their go-to-market and really the transition for traditional businesses and enterprises from using on-premises technology to now having it hosted in the cloud. shortly thereafter, or 7.5 short years thereafter, Davey then joined up as a solutions architect and regional leader for Amazon Web Services based in Shanghai City in China. And then about close to maybe 2.5 years ago, I believe, maybe 2 years ago, joined up at Tencent's cloud computing operations, now based in Palo Alto, since 2018, where he is now the chief solutions architect for Tencent's cloud platform. Ladies and gentlemen in the Zoom audience, please help me welcome Davey Wong to our Lu Distinguished Visitor Series Fireside Chat this evening. Davey, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kyle. And I really appreciate for offering me such opportunity to share my experience, share my knowledge to the students in the University of Rice. And also special thanks to Frank Liu and Stephen Lee who make this happen, Stephen Fang, sorry, to make this happen. And again, yeah, it's my great pleasure to be sit here and discuss with you.
We're greatly appreciative and incredibly lucky because again, your journey in your professional life has touched on so many of these key elements, technology, innovation, startups, you name it. Before we dive into some of those elements, I just wanted to see if you wouldn't mind taking a couple minutes and kind of sharing a little bit more about your background and your superhero origin story before the cloud ever became a part of your life. And I know you kind of majored in information technology, and just tell us about what drew you to that field to begin with.
Sure. Yeah, actually, my case may be a little bit special to most of you guys here. I know that some of the students will have the difficulties when they're choosing the majors, with choosing their first job, but I can share my little story here. So actually, my parents are working in the biggest SOE, state-owned enterprise in the telecom field. So at that time, it's called high tech, right? Even now, it's very traditional, but at that time, it's really high tech. And I got a chance to touch the computer, which is really advanced at that time. And also, I'm really lucky enough to enroll the after-school club for programming at my teenage, around 10 years or 11 years. And we're using Apple II at that time. And again, I'm also lucky enough that I convinced my parents to buy me a very expensive computer at that time. So it's, I cannot imagine that at that time, it cost us around $1,000 for the computer.
Wow.
But their salary is only about $100 per month. Yeah, really appreciate for my parents' great support. So from that moment on, I know that IT, information technology, computer science will be my lifetime dream, and I will follow my heart.
That's a great way of getting exposure. And I think we've seen so many other leaders in the information technology field got started down that path because they were given that opportunity when they were still young to explore and try out some kind of brand new technology. I don't want to dive too deep into your experience at university, but obviously a large part of our audience this evening are folks from the Rice University ecosystem. And one of the questions that I always like to ask folks is just to talk about maybe one of the most kind of impactful experiences that you had while you were a student that helped inform who you are and where you've chosen to work and how you've kind of chosen to dedicate your life's work kind of these last 10, 15 some odd years now.
Sure. Since I mentioned, I get to know the computer. I have my own computer at my teenage. And before I came into the college, I think I got enough experience either for programming or maybe the operation system. I believe I understand a lot. But when I get real courses in my college, I found that it's another exciting world. One of the most important moment I could remember is that one of our courses is called pattern recognition. So that is to say, using the programming language, figure out the patterns and do some predictions. At that time, we don't have any fancy words called machine learning or AI. It's just a very simple pattern recognition. But when I implement those pattern recognition, I found that the computer can recognize the plane. So our task is to figure out the plane in the picture. So that's get me shocked. So I think maybe this is really amazing. Instead of I made a lot of program. I made a small game for myself, made some useful tools for myself, but this changed my mind totally. I think, wow, computer will can be more, way more than that. And another thing is, I started my dream when I was in the university. At that time, I have a lot of program that will consume the compute resource, which means I need a power computer. But at that time, we don't have the conditions. We can only access the computer at at the school, at the college. I don't have a super power computer myself. And that's from that moment on, I believe that somebody will invent the technology to let everybody use any powerful computers freely I know as you want.
I know so many of our students, particularly from disciplines like computer science, similarly are working on games on the side, hacking together their own little software projects, and kind of that outside of the class learning being an important component to obviously a well-rounded experience that that you're getting in the classroom. So I want to go from kind of talking about some of the impactful experiences that you had while a university student to now just talking a little bit about some of what you learned from your time as a consultant in your early professional years, because I know a lot of our students, both from MBA programs as well as undergrad engineering and sciences, many of them do end up in consulting roles, much like yourself. And I think it can be an incredibly powerful experience to have a 30,000-foot view in a lot of different places and a lot of different companies and industries. But I'm curious, what did you learn and what did you take away from your experience as a consultant at Wipro that has really stuck with you over the last, nearly 20 years now?
Well, again, first, like you mentioned, I joined Wipro after my graduation. And at that time, to be honest, I don't have any plans because there are a lot of directions on the IT field. But only things I know that I need to focus on IT, which is my interest. So here is something I want to tell to the students here in the rise. So choose something you like instead of like something you choose. The cost will be high as the second option. And again, I'm also lucky enough because my role at Wipro at that time will be a consultant focusing on the enterprise application integration. So some background there. At around 2000 years, so there are already a lot of applications to support the business, especially on the Fortune 500 companies. But the issue came after is that all the applications are silo style. They don't communicate with each other. They just running their business, and it's really hard to integrate. It's really hard to make them talk to each other and make data synchronization. And my role is focusing on integrate them together to serve the smooth business process. So I feel really lucky enough because I take that opportunity to learn pretty much all the system to support the business on the big companies, especially multinational company. And you know, it, I learned day and night to figure out what the business, what the system look like, and what the data flow look like, and how to integrate them together. So there's also the fancy word at that time called SOA, service-oriented architecture. So at that time, I take this chance to get familiar with those big companies, the business process, different functions, how they support their key business.
So you go from kind of being a consultant at Wipro and working across a number of different companies,
Yeah.
diving into services oriented architecture and a number of other areas. And then you transition on over into this area of cloud computing, which was still very nascent at the time that you joined IBM.
Yeah.
And so I'm just curious, how did that process come about? How did you look at that opportunity and say, I need to be doing something in this cloud computing space? And what do you really think that your job was back then?
Sure. As I mentioned, we are doing consultant work with a lot of IT department to make sure the system got integrated. But I got several complaints from the C-level, including CIO, CTO. One of their major concerns is about their server utilization. So they told me that every project, the project team will ask for resources like I need to buy some servers, storage, and network devices to support my project. Not only the production environment, but also the testing and staging and production. And after the project ends, nobody knows where the server is and how the server could be leveraged. So that's the biggest concern, and they spend much money on that, but they don't know how to track the usage. So essential for the initial cloud concept is very simple. The purpose for the private cloud is just to make a full use of their resources. The private cloud will make all their resources a resource pool. So if somebody, some team, some project want to apply for the resources, they need to fill an applications and they will get what they can get. And after the project ends, after they don't want to use it, the resource will be released to the resource pool. And in the meanwhile, another function of the cloud is to do internal charge. This will help those projects manage their budget and costs effectively. Instead of put all the cost into IT department that will become the cost center. So they don't know exactly where their money goes to. So that's the very concept why they need a cloud. Yeah, for sure. Currently, cloud means a more broad concept, but at the very beginning, it's just focusing on increasing the usage, utilization of the resource.
I can only imagine how IT managers and CIOs loved you for finally not making them, be seen and felt like just being this one big cost center for the whole enterprise. But obviously, cloud changed quite radically and became much more prominent, I think, across technology, across business, and all elements of life from 2005, 2006 when you started at IBM to 2013 when you left. What was it like to live through this massive technological shift going on from when you started to the time when you left IBM?
Sure. When I was working for IBM, their solution is more focusing on the private cloud side. But like you mentioned, when I joined AWS, Amazon Web Services, they are the purely public cloud service provider. So from that moment on, I realized public cloud maybe could be the future. And the two important feature of public cloud to benefit you can get from public cloud is first is electricity. So for every single user, you can imagine that you have unlimited resource. You can fire up, hundreds of servers, terabytes of storage. So for single server, there's no limitations. You cannot imagine that in private cloud. There's always limitations. The power, the room, the data centers are so limited. But for public cloud, a special team will handle that part, handle the underneath, how to expansion, how to add the more resources, how to balance the resource. So one of the features is electricity. The second one is pay as you go. That's also another important feature. For private cloud, for sure, the company has to buy all the resources first, no matter you use it or not. Even using private cloud can increase the utilization, but it cannot lower any cost, right? You have to buy the whole data center yourself, including all the devices inside the data center. But public cloud changed the rule. You just pay what you used. So like to say, you can put all your money on the key part and you don't waste any cents out of your pocket. All the money will be put onto the compute storage that you used. So that's the two key part, the difference the private cloud with public cloud. And since when I moved to AWS, I realized those benefits that bring to the customers. So that's the biggest change during my career, switch from private cloud to the public cloud.
Well, as a former entrepreneur who started a company in 2008, 2009, ran it until 2013, we were an enormous an enormous beneficiary of the public cloud and this rise, because it meant for us, and I know so many other entrepreneurs all around the world, we were no longer kind of held hostage of having to buy and set up and maintain the server racks. And, as our application use scaled, we could very easily just scale on AWS for us. And so I know that the kind of widespread use and opening up of the public cloud has been this enormous lever to increase entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial opportunity for a lot more people, lower the cost of starting up and a lot of those sort of elements. But as somebody who has kind of worked at a number of the largest organizations in cloud, from IBM in private cloud to AWS and now at Tencent, can you just talk a little bit about how those different organizations have viewed and thought about this platform technology and what it might mean for each of their respective businesses?
Sure. So like I mentioned, at the very early stage, cloud will be only focusing so-called IaaS, infrastructure as a service. But now you can see almost every cloud has become the comprehensive platform, not only the compute, storage, network, and database, but also platform as a service and SaaS, software as a service, including like machine learning, AI, DevOps, IoT, a lot of tools and services products on top of cloud. So there are, we know that there are several giants in the cloud world, including like Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Alibaba, and Tencent, right? They are all the giants, the cloud players in the world. I believe that every one of them have their own unique value to their customers. For example, AWS came from serving the Amazon.com. So they have their strengths on serving the e-commerce company, right? And I believe that Tencent is the #1 gaming company in the world, and Tencent has the rich experience on hosting gaming on the cloud. So that's another interesting topic. Every cloud will find its unique value and find its unique position and find their target customers. So again, my suggestion to the startups, to the entrepreneur, so please look at the cloud and find the best suitable cloud for you. That's something you need to consider.
That's great. And I shared a little bit about my entrepreneurial journey. You've had experiences as being an entrepreneur and an innovator inside of these big companies as well. I know a number of our students who are entrepreneurial in nature end up spending their first several years after graduating as innovators and applying that same kind of entrepreneurial mindset inside the structures of a large company. As somebody who's lived in many of those different worlds, can you just share a little bit about how you might describe the differences between being in an entrepreneurial setting versus being an innovator inside of a large company?
Sure. There are several key differences. And the first one is about the vision and goal of the company. If you are working for the big company, the vision and the goal will be made by the senior management team, especially when you just join the company after the fresh graduation. So you can seldom you can do with the vision, right? And the goal, right? Somebody will assign that for you. But for the startup or small companies, you can determine the direction, right? So you can know where we should go, where we should head to. So that's the one of the important difference. And the other is, in order to do that, the resource you can get. We know that if something got defined as a resource, it's always limited, no matter it's a big company or small company. But the challenge is a little bit different. For the multinational companies, I've been working for several multinational companies. So you have to there's plenty of resource there, but how to get it is something you need to consider. You need to get support from your boss, from the senior management team, using all kinds of ways. You can say, hey, here's the data, here's something I need to do the influence, and here's a strategy of my department. So using all kinds of things, even your personal relationship, right? But for small companies, you don't have any resources. Again, you also have to use all kinds of ways, including like personal connections, friends and families and partners to get all resources you need to support your vision, support your goal, and support your business.
I love that. And, you know, we've kind of already gone a little bit down the rabbit hole on cloud computing and a platform, but I know many of the folks in the room might not necessarily be coming from, you know, deep computer science backgrounds. And so would you mind just briefly explaining for folks who might not be coming from technical backgrounds, what actually is cloud computing and why is it so important here and now today in 2020?
Sure, sure. You know, when I just introduced others, especially non-technical background friends that think that I'm doing the cloud computing business, they got confused. So what is cloud computing, right? Well, what does that mean? So usually I'll explain them in another way. So think about the power, the electricity, right? So when you got a new house, you have two options. The first one is get you connected to the electrical grid. So alternatively, you can get the electricity and you will be charged by the uh, volume you consumed. The other option is to you can build your own power station, right? No matter how many power it generates, you can use it. You just invest for the power station. So electric grid will be the cloud mode, subscription mode. You pay as you go, you consumed. So the traditional part will be look at the power station mode. You build your own, you maintain your power station, make sure that it will be high available. But for the cloud mode, you don't worry about that. But unfortunately, PG&E is not doing a great job. So here in the Bay Area, we got a break sometime.
That's a great background and kind of primer on what the cloud is and why it's been such a transformational element. Obviously, in your role as kind of solutions architect, you're straddling a little bit with one foot in the world of technology and infrastructure and architecture, and one foot in the world of working closely and hand in hand with your large corporate partners. I know you've personally kind of helped work with and set up cloud partnerships with some of the biggest names in tech, from the largest accommodation sharing platform, some of the largest games in the world. How did those partnerships actually happen? How did they come about?
Sure, I can share with you a little bit more detail how cloud can help their business grow. The first, let's take a game company, for example. I have delivered a speech at GDC, Game Developer Conference, the biggest conference in the game world. And we know, when people talking about how to support the game, people always thinking that, oh, you have more servers, you have more storage to support those games. Sure, we have that resources. Cloud have that resources, but we are not only doing that purely. We are doing a way more than that. For example, we can divide a game into several parts. First important part is shared service, which means authentication, authorization, and log services, all those called shared services. When you log into the server, when you come into the game, that's something every player needs to be go through that services. So for that part, the challenge is auto scale, which means that they will scale based on the number of kind of users, based on the players. And also they have another part we call battle server, which means if you have a team on the battle with the other team, on the back end, they will create a server and provide the environment underneath to make sure that you can battle on the room and with instant feedback. So that part is really flexible, which means once you decide to fight with each other, there'll be automatically a battle server comes up and support you. So based on that, cloud has that flexibilities we call infra as a code. So you're just using several lines of code, and you can fire up machines and storage and pre-install all the stuff they are needed to support your battle instantly. So for the gaming part, we provide a lot of services for their call services and their battle servers. And again, it could be all over the world, not only US, not only Europe, not only China, but every corner of the world. They can find the nearest region and data centers and fire the better servers for you to have a better experience. Another interesting example is about the accommodation sharing company. So for that company, again, when we're talking about cloud, we're not only talking about the infrastructure, it's a comprehensive platform. For that part, we provide an interesting service, which is called Chatbot. I'm not sure how many of you knowing that, more than half of the uh, like uh, agent on the like chat engine on the web will be supported. It's a robot. It's not human being behind. And we provide, this is also so-called cloud services. We provide APIs to them so they can integrate our chatbot service into their like support team and customer service team. So this will reduce their workload hugely, especially during the COVID-19, and save them a lot of effort and money dealing with the common questions asked by their customer.
I think that's the right way to look at it, because one of the pitfalls that I've seen for a lot of deeply technical folks, particularly deeply technical entrepreneurs, is that they develop the solution first and then try and push it out into the market and hope that they can find the right place to solve problems. But it seems like your approach is staying very kind of customer centric and understanding what their needs are, what value can Tencent's cloud platform, both from an infrastructure perspective, but all these additional services, as you mentioned, how it can actually solve real problems that they're experiencing. And I think that's where it makes technology that much easier to be adopted for older legacy companies or newer technology companies to all transition to leveraging and maximizing the impact of the cloud. And I think, speaking about impact, obviously this has been a crazy year in a lot of different ways, but particularly kind of the last 9 or 10 months or so of dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. Can you just talk a little bit about how maybe cloud computing can or is playing a role during people's lives, during businesses' lives during the pandemic?
Sure. So we have done a lot of analysis on the impact of COVID-19. But obviously, from the users, from the customer's perspective, during that period, even now, almost everybody has to stay at home, right? And a lot of services have been shipped to the online, including, like, for sure, gaming increasing dramatic, and online shopping, online summit like what we are doing now, webinar, and even virtual clinic will become more and more popular. All those kind of services will be on top of cloud services for sure. That will be much easier, especially you can now go outside. You can go to maintain your own data centers. Cloud is the best option. So we can see that during the last several months, the business of cloud increasing very fast.
Yeah, I can certainly see that, and I am equally liable for the increase in gaming. My wife and I are equally liable for the increase in shopping online. Certainly, telehealth, another big component. So, the cloud and particularly your experience as being a cloud architecture expert for most of your professional life, it's gone through a lot of transformations over the last kind of 15 years or so. Where does the cloud go from here in terms of its development, in terms of its adoption rate at this point?
Yeah, I think now I'm almost the second stage of cloud. And as I mentioned before, the first stage will be focusing on the infrastructure level, in talking about flexibility, talking about utilization, and talking about time to market. But now, maybe the second stage. And the adoption rate, I can say that first batch of the customers are internet related. We call internet related, which means their business are heavily dependent on internet. Most of the internet companies by default are using cloud now. So that's something has happened. But a majority part, when I have been working in IBM in those kind of big giants, when we're talking about to be business. So the majority part is enterprise. Now in the enterprise world, the adoption rate is not very high because several reasons. And first is they have a heavy legacy system. They have already a large data center already. They cannot get rid of it overnight. They have to leverage it. And some of the mission critical applications has to be stable. You cannot be so aggressive to make it migrate to cloud. Say, for example, core banking system are still using mainframe, which is really old, but it's really stable, right?
Yeah.
And that part will be the second part, but the difficult part for the cloud adoptions.
You talk about so many tech companies and so many different forms of business now relying on the cloud. And I think that's an interesting one because we've certainly seen this year and really for the last couple of years, how these companies, particularly when they're publicly traded companies who are leveraging the cloud, have seen exponential growth, not only in their revenue and profits, but in their share and stock price. And so I'm just curious when it comes to public cloud companies like Snowflake, Twilio, and a number of others that are out there. Do you think that there's some irrational exuberance around the cloud when it comes to public markets, or do you think this kind of path and trajectory that we're on and that these businesses are on is only going to increase, or maybe are we at the start of another bubble?
Well, here's my 2 cents. I have been watching this for a few years, and from my own perspective, I could see that will continue growing based on my understanding of cloud. So I just mentioned that cloud now came into the second stage. It doesn't mean that this happen. The second stage will happen only on all the giants, like we mentioned, like Google, Microsoft, Amazon, and we can see in some of the niche markets, some of the specific area. So yeah, you mentioned Snowflake, right? And also some of the other software as a service. We all generally we call that cloud service, right? Zoom. Yeah, I believe that the founder of the Zoom will be another speaker next month or next week.
Next
And
week,
also,
yeah.
right. And also, this will be the next stage of cloud services, like I mentioned, PaaS or SaaS. And also this will sometimes a third party, an individual company can do that easily. Say, for example, almost all the cloud service providers have similar services like Zoom, but they are not successful as Zoom itself, right? Yeah, because almost all the cloud services, service platform have hundreds of services, and like online video is only one of them. But Zoom is a whole company focusing on the online conference.
Yeah, it's a great point. Obviously, we wouldn't be able to do this speaker series this evening. I'm obviously teaching over Zoom and leveraging a lot of these platforms built on top of the cloud and using that technology at its core.
Even the revenue from the big giants, we know that all the giants have different business units focusing on different business. And from this year, we could see that their cloud department, the revenue from their cloud department will increasing very fast, much faster than any other business.
It feels like the cloud generally has been on this meteoric rise over the last 15 years. And I think people rightfully so have been incredibly excited by that. What do you think are some of the main problems facing cloud computing today?
Mm-hmm. Well, I could see that, which is innovation. So I'm not sure if you noticed that a lot of platform will announce its innovation every year. So that's really critical to the cloud platform. So as like I mentioned, almost all the cloud platform have hundreds of services and products. But what will be the next? And how they attract the customers continuously and bring more values to the customer. That's the key issue. And right, so that's say, for example, previously they only provide those basic services, but now how to make the basic services even stronger, right? More powerful compute and more cheap and durable storage. And on top of that, what kind of tools they should provide to let them feel comfortable out of box tools to let the customers only focusing on their business. So
Yeah,
that's right.
yeah, and I think that's an important answer. I think any platform needs to keep innovating, otherwise it'll eventually be surpassed. I think one of the more interesting challenges is even just the perception of cloud and the enabling factor that it plays in artificial intelligence. And so I'm just curious, what are your thoughts around this conversation that kind of keeps popping up around, are cloud and artificial intelligence creating more jobs or actually destroying more jobs for this kind of modern economy these days?
Yeah, and first of all, I think cloud will be the best platform for AI machine learning. It's because think about what is AI, right? First, you need to have a place to storage all the data. So the storage need to be cheap, need to be stable. And second, you have to plenty of compute resource to do the analyze prediction. So with those nature of AI, for sure, cloud is the best fit. And for me, in my eyes, AI is just a tool to improve the efficiency of the people's work. It's like the tractor for the farmers, right? You cannot see that the farmers get rid of the job of the farmer, the tractor, right? So it's a tool. So maybe in some area, it can improve the people's efficiency and use less human resource, their human effort, but it can save people's effort putting on other area. A lot of area that AI cannot be replaced. The human cannot be replaced by AI.
I love that, and it brings to mind the quote from legendary entrepreneur, venture capitalist Mark Andreessen, seemingly I think maybe 10 years ago, that software is eating the world,
Yeah.
and this kind of convergence.
Software.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and this kind of convergence of software and kind of computational muscle that the cloud allows for, coming into a lot of different areas from biology and chemistry, material science, you name it. I'm curious, what are some of the recent trends that you're seeing around the cloud? What are some of the applications and areas and these kind of collisions of different storm fronts and different disciplines that you think are most interesting, that you think are that you and your team are maybe paying the most attention to right now?
Well, again, I'm focusing on cloud itself. For cloud, I think there are several directions. And the first is industry cloud. And now cloud platform can provide general support to almost all the industry, but it cannot resolve industry specific issues like, right, we saw gaming, e-commerce, manufacturing, finance, they have their own issues. And if we can provide industry focused cloud, and that will be easier for the industry experts, for the companies to become more focusing on their business growth. And the other direction is called edge computing. That's some area I'm considering that will be the next wave because essentially technology trend is decentralized. But at the first, when I saw cloud, I said, wow, it's a centralized everything. That's good, but it causes more issues. So now we realize and we push more functions and capabilities to the edge and make it decentralized, high available, and more close to the users. And third direction is SaaS, software as a service. I mean, recent 3 years, a lot of SaaS companies go public, like you mentioned, and the several potential SaaS companies. I think that's really another direction. I think SaaS will be the next wave. When I thought about this, it was 2017. So 3 years ago, I think that would be the trend, and now it came true.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm curious, and we're about to shift in a couple of minutes to just answering some of the Q&A from folks in the audience. But one of my last questions for you is just as we start thinking about kind of tying this all together for the audience, many of whom again are coming from technical backgrounds, coming from being interested in pursuing entrepreneurial passions and journeys, being an innovator inside of a large company. What's some advice that you would give to our soon-to-be college graduates in the audience that maybe want to become entrepreneurs or want to become innovators inside of a large corporation? Are there any, books or movies or pieces of advice that really had a big impact on you and that have really stuck with you over the years?
Sure. So I always kind of have this kind of questions, and my answer will be always look like first, no matter you want to be an innovator inside the company or entrepreneur, you want to have your own startup, you need to join the big company first to learn about that. But the mindset should be different. For example, you don't just want to do the work assigned to you. If you want to be the leader of engineering, if you want to be the leader of marketing, you just watch and see what the current leaders are doing and do assumption. If I'm the leader, what should I do? So with that way of thinking, you will grow very fast. And also do not focusing on your own business unit. Look at how you collaborate with other business units, and you will have a comprehensive understanding of what a real company look like. That's really important for the fresh graduation students. You have a sense because a large company always has its reason to grow that big. And
It's
also, yeah.
No, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Again, don't limit it to your own job. So even you want to start something new, you must understand current situation. Then you can come out some new idea, new directions.
I love that, and I think any entrepreneurial journey or path, any innovation driven journey or path, we all have to learn some hard lessons along the way by making some mistakes. And so I'm just curious if you could travel back in time to, Davey in 2007, still at IBM, and still while the public cloud was this very nascent technological platform. And you could kind of run into yourself, defy all the laws of time travel, and have 15 minutes to actually share some lessons or pieces of advice with your past self, with the idea of saving yourself from making a lot of those same mistakes or giving yourself a near heart attack. What would those pieces of advice be to 2007 Davey?
Well, so I think the biggest lesson I learned from recent years is do not only focusing on technical, but also focusing on build the relationship, build the connection, and earn trust. So after I graduated, I focusing on the technical itself. I said I will be the technical expert. I focusing on advanced technology. But I realized, this the build relationship currently now I feel that it should more also as important as technology. And I got benefit from I think I realized that in 2010, and I also got a lot of benefit from building connections already. I believe that if you build connections as early as possible, they'll be, bring a lot of benefit to you, especially to the students here. I know all of you are talent since you are selected to be enter Rice University, and all of you maybe be top expert on your field. And if you can keep your connections with your classmates, colleagues, and will be create a win-win situation, and all of you will get benefit from each other, from the relationship you build.
That's such a great piece. Communication can really be a superpower, both as a founder selling your vision of the future to the world, but also especially inside of a big company, as you touched on earlier, being able to convince leadership to allocate resources for your projects, to allow you the space to innovate and space to grow. One of the questions that we've gotten from the audience, I think, is very much in line with that idea. I'd love to get your thoughts on it. The question was, how did you go about getting buy-in from stakeholders and organizations that maybe had previously been stuck using on-prem servers and services? Because that change management piece is an incredibly complex one. So can you just shine a little bit of light on what was your process for building consensus and getting people to change the way that they ran their business?
Well, that really depends on my audience. I can give an example, right? If I'm talking to the CEO, I'd like to talk about like cloud can change your business model. It's like a digital transformation. say, for example, I successfully convinced one of my very traditional customers, just a wind turbine manufacturing, to an technical service provider using cloud services. But if you're talking to a CFO, you have to talk about TCO, right? Total cost ownership, and talking about we can change the cost model from the capex to OPEX. That bring a lot of savings to the CFO. You will have a better financial report. So again, it's really different on your audience, and the principle is to get his goal in aligned with cloud.
That's I couldn't agree more. It's life in a lot of ways is about knowing who your audience is, and changing your pitch to speak to them in the terms that matter to them.
Yes. So then they got interested and keep talking with you.
Absolutely. Well, I think one of the more interesting areas is this idea of so many different elements of life and industry becoming much more automated, and a lot of that being driven by the availability of cloud computing. Do you actually ever think, one of the questions from the audience, do you actually ever think that software engineering in and of itself will be automated?
So the question is, so software engineering will be automated?
Yeah. Do you think that it will ever reach that point where maybe AI powered by being on the cloud will ever be able to kind of fully automate software development?
Right. Yeah, I started from the software engineering, and I know that this question has been discussed for more than 10 years. And, so again, I don't think it could be automated. It's not like AI cannot replace the human beings here, but the cloud platform, the AI machine learning can provide awesome tools to help you to make sure your work will be more efficient, and you can focusing on innovation, you can focusing on the business. But again, I don't think there'll be a robot writing code for you.
All of our computer science students in the audience can breathe a sigh of relief. You will maintain your job security and job prospects moving forward. The robots are not yet coming for software engineers.
Right, but again, you should focusing on the key part, the part that cannot replace by AI. You cannot, focusing on some of the work that can be replaceable and routine job.
As we now round into the last couple of minutes, just the last couple of questions here from the audience. I think one of the challenges, and maybe you encountered this in working with these big corporations to help them transition from on-prem to the cloud, is the concern around the security of the information that lives in the cloud. Yeah. And how big of a risk or concern is that? Can you just talk about that experience a little bit, what you're seeing as far as information privacy and security in the cloud, how maybe you overcame some of the objections from CIOs and chief information security officers about the security of having their business, their sensitive information hosted on the cloud?
Right. Since day one, the first question asked by customer to me is always about your security. People think, wow, public cloud. Does that mean everything I put on the cloud will be public? So that's a confusing name, right? So usually we will help the customer understand the security on cloud in several ways. And first, how do you define security? How do you feel that the data will secure? The answer is, there are a lot of experts on security. They can give the authorization. So we work closely with those professional associations to get certified. And all the experts will think that your cloud is secure. Then maybe that can, release some pressure on the security side. And second, some of the customers are already using cloud, especially the Fortune 500. They have their own ways to evaluate how secure cloud is, right? And they also have a lot of strict process, testing, experts working on that. If they are using the cloud, then you have a confidence. And third one, we will share some of the security, like what we call SOP, standard operation. So they will get understand how we operate cloud, and they will feel comfortable.
And I think what you just touched on nicely dovetails into another question we actually just had emailed into us from somebody who's been doing work much in the same way of trying to convince companies to transition from on-prem to the cloud. Obviously, one issue is, you know, this perceived risk of information security. How about the people talent that goes along with it? Because it's never just about shifting the technology. It's also about shifting the training, the skills of the folks who are still
Right.
going to be embedded in that company after. Can you just talk about some of the challenges on the people side of the house also when it comes to that transition from on-prem to the cloud?
Sure, sure. That's also a lot of, especially, you know, I can share with you that the operation guys are really concerned about this change because traditionally they are operating on the physical data centers, but now it disappeared, right? They will be put more workload on the cloud, and what should they do? How they do the transition? So I, I, I think I successfully delivered a lot of training to those traditional operation guys. And first, I'll tell them that migrate to cloud, that doesn't mean they don't need operation. They still need operation, but another way of operation. You still have to set up the monitoring, alert, ticket system, but it's not based on the hardware, it's based on the cloud. And the philosophy is the same. The only thing is you need to change it from hardware to the cloud. You cannot have the physical visibilities, but you can still feel it, you can still monitor it. And it's the time for you to learn some new things, no matter it's good for your personal or for the company. So everybody needs to learn, especially in the technical field. It's a good opportunity for you to learn. You don't lose your job, just transit your job to the cloud operation. And you have more opportunities in the future.
I love that, and I think that that leads us into, because I know we've got kind of 1 minute left. The last question I think is a great one to wrap up on, and it's just about, to what do you contribute your success? How much of it is luck? How much of it is hard work? How much of it is being in the right place and the right field at the right time?
Wow, that's an interesting question. We discuss this a lot. First, I don't think I'm so successful, but I think, and it's really a combination of the hard work and the choice. Your choice is really important to see. For example, uh, I choose cloud as my career, right? I think I'm the first correct step I've made. So it's really a combination, but you have to think about that. You have to use your head and think about deeply and do a lot of study to make the right choice together with your hard work. And I think you'll be successful.
I love that answer. I'm a very big believer in the personal success, professional success being at this intersection between some of it being luck and some of it just being as prepared as possible for when luck and serendipity occur. So I love that. Unfortunately, we've reached our time. I feel like we could go another hour and still be scratching the surface of everything cloud, where it goes from here, how do emerging fields like quantum computing and others potentially impact the cloud going forward. But just want to wrap it all up by saying thank you so much, Davey, from all of us at Rice, from all of our alums around the world that have been joining in and watching, from the Lilly Lab, from the Chao Center. We're so appreciative of you making the time of sharing your experiences, your advice, and your journey with us this evening for the Lu Distinguished Visitor Series. We really appreciate it. We really appreciate you.
Yeah, I also, feel very good pleasure and enjoying discussion with you about those kind of cloud and experience. Appreciate the for such an opportunity.
We'd love that. And the more that we can have opportunities for our Rice students and graduates to come and join you over at Tencent Cloud, we aren't going to be shy about reaching out. Also, I hope that many of them will explore the opportunities at Tencent Cloud and other cloud computing organizations, platforms, tools, and services moving forward. This cloud revolution is not going to slow down anytime soon, I think. And as you alluded to, for any of those in the audience who who have gotten a lot out of this discussion this evening, who are interested in continuing these conversations, you can obviously come and join us at the Lilly Lab, entrepreneurship.rice.edu. And as Davey mentioned, next week, November 10th, we are going to have the incredible opportunity to do a fireside chat with Eric Yuan, the CEO and founder of Zoom, hear about his incredible story, what it was like trying to get a visa for 8 chances and finally getting it on lucky number 9, before now obviously building one of the biggest cloud technology solutions and services, or built on top of cloud technology, I should say, in Zoom, and his experience, the future of Zoom impacting education and healthcare and all these different facets. I encourage you all to please come and join us. You can get more information and register for joining us for your ticket at https://lilly.link/Zoom, November 10th, 4 to 5:15 p.m. Central. Join us there. Hope to see you all on the web. Hope to see you all living in the cloud in the not too distant future. Thanks again to Davey Wong, Chief Solutions Architect at Tencent Cloud, for joining us this evening for our Lu Distinguished Visitors Series. Thank you all for taking time out of your lives to join us as well. Take care, relax, take a deep breath. Have a great rest of your week, everybody. Thanks so much.
Thank you.